Let's lower the intensity a little bit. Something like that. So I think we're pretty much far enough to call the high done for now. So I'm gonna slightly adjust the shape here. Even out that fold. So let's call this done for now, and maybe we'll add some more details later. Seems like we lost some tension here. Just going in, adding some really quick tension here. We need to push this in a little bit so we don't see it too much from this angle. I think that's good enough. Let's check for some intersections. That was fine. Go ahead and break this shape up a little bit. I think we're done with the high. Actually, we can still add like one thingy if we want to. There's like this tube-like thingy in the back here. I couldn't really find a good reference for how that should go. Do have this one, and I'll probably add this one instead. Maybe I'll just keep it like this. So I looked up some more reference and decided to go with this one. So I just made a quick tube block out of how I want it to flow. Something like that. Again, it's not too important how it ends. When we do the final render, it's gonna be like this. You can see it has like this kind of difficult twisting to make. At least that's what you think is difficult, but we can do this in Maya super easily. I want to see exactly go. I think this could be kind of like a cool shape where it starts to point towards the front. And would like come together here to do some stuff, but that's all gonna be off the render, so I'm not gonna worry about that too much. I think that works. Maybe we can kind of follow that curvature by curving that out. I think that works quite well. Add some depth also to the model. So now let's export this, go to Maya. So let's import. If we go to front view and create a curve. Just gonna trace the shape that we created here. Again, this doesn't need to be perfect. And something like that. Let's go to right view. I think an easy way to do this is just to add an FFD. Let's delete the history. Actually messed up a curve. Let's show what happened there. Delete history. Now we can kind of clean that up. But by moving everything with an FFD to start off, we can get a lot closer faster. And then we just make some minimal adjustments. So something like this. Copy this curve. Let's actually do this in a different file. So let's do this in alpha low. And paste. Over here we can add sweep mesh. Let's see why it's not working. We have to select it here. Do 6. So make sure to put it from start to end so it's all even. Now all we have to do is add like a twist, maybe 200, 1000. We have to add more of these actually. Maybe 200. Maybe 400. That looks about right. Just delete the history on this. Try to bevel this all. I'm going to select every other one and push this out. Select the other ones and push that out as well maybe. Start off with this as a base. Now we can import. Now let's see how many fixes. I'm gonna try to do an inflate. Feel like that works. Now let's try polish. We want to have that on a layer. Like we need to go back a little bit here. This time I'm not going to freeze the history, but just export import to get a new one that we can mess with. this can take a little bit of time trying to find something that actually works well. Maybe we can try beveling this. Not doing anything else except for trying things to get it to work. Maybe we can try an uneven number. Maybe 6. On an even, but like where we have 3 instead. Also make this one a little bit smaller. I think that's a little bit close to what we're looking for. That's also not it. Let's try adding more twist. Maybe 1000. I think now we actually get it to work if we put the 3. Not mess with too much anymore. Maybe a little less. So I guess we just need to mess with the twist num until it starts twisting nicely. So we can smooth that effect out a little bit by changing that number. Let's try this. Get that one a little bit inflated. And that looks a lot better. I think it's a little bit hard. I don't want to mess with the topology. I think now we can try to dynamesh this. Let's first actually get some subdivisions. Now dynamesh. Put this on half. It's gonna zero mesh it with half the resolution. Actually, this might be better if we work with symmetry, so it will be easy to retop. I think we can half it one more time. This is just gonna smooth it out a little bit. As you can see, it's becoming softer and softer. Half one more time. And make a new layer and now polish this. Maybe something like that. Make a run from like this, put in shape. just follow the tension of this line. I think I might break symmetry after we bake on this. Position it a little bit better. It would look better when we had it more pointed down. I think like that works. So let's call the height done. Actually, we need like a little ladder thingy here. We can do like mask pan. That's right. Let's inflate and add thickness. Won't treat this piece like all the other pieces of a ladder, so we're gonna add some paneling as well to this. Symmetry. So let's take this one, subtool, duplicate. Also let's apply the thickness here. Let's make this one with more offset and less thickness. Maybe a little bit thicker. Like that. Go ahead and do a polish. Some quick noise. And apply. Maybe 0.015. That looks better. Gonna merge these down. Let's make it a little bit more tight. And this one has like some details. We're not gonna go ahead and model it. It looks like an absolute pain to do. But what we can do is we can make a layer. We can sculpt that in. This doesn't need to be really clean, because you cannot really tell what's going on. Especially if you just see this in a really quick render, you're not going to be able to tell what's going on. This part's a little bit weird. I think that works. Get rid of this little ball shapes a little bit. Maybe one more subdivision so we can get it a little bit more tight and nice. That just makes it look a little bit more polished. And this looks strange, let's get rid of that. think we will get rid of this line as well. I don't like it. So I think it just looks a little bit strange and unpolished if we compare it to the rest. So let's actually just get rid of it. Be a shame if we rush through the last part and bring the quality of the whole asset down with it. So let's export this to Maya. Delete this one. Let's hide this one. Let's import. Now let's just do it like a line here. Let's follow that curvature a bit. And let's make sure it goes in. So now what we can do is we can do a sweep mesh again. Now distribute. Let's try 3 maybe. Align. Let's twist this. Some smooth mesh. Maybe we can try 4, see how that looks. I do feel like it needs to be 3. Take them at the bottom, also a little bit at the top. You can see we have quite a lot of control with sweep mesh, which is great. I think that's one of the only real useful features that Maya has released in quite a while. I think I'll try something like this. So now we can export that. And import. Geometry crease. Let's mirror and weld. Increase all and now decrease this. And that looks a lot better. Move this around a little bit. Also just subdivide it so we get some better control. This thing's gonna be a pain to retopologize, I can already tell. I think that's looking pretty nice. It looks a lot better than what we had before. That's for sure. Let's go ahead and save. let's see, do we need to adjust anything else? I think I'm ready to start preparing to do the low. So to do that, I'm gonna work with bake groups. But first we're gonna think, hey, the different elements. So we have the mask element, then we have the goggle element and the helmet. So that's the very first thing that I would start off with, defining in what group everything belongs. So this one will definitely be the helmet. This one needs to go in the mask, helmet. Ropes needs to go in mask, it's part of the mask. Let's say these are part of the mask as well. This one's part of the goggles. This one's part of the helmet. So the way you want to think about this, let's say this is like a modular asset. See, this one's in the wrong group. So the way I like to think about retopology is make this modular as you can. So let's say with this we can just have that mask be shared with different assets. First we need to separate this out. This should be in the helmet group. So split hidden. Let's take this one to the helmet. So now if we hide everything, you can see. Let's say we have multiple versions of masks for our game character. Then we can just switch those out really easily. So this should be on one object, which will be called, let's say, mask. And then same for goggles. That looks alright. So we can change the goggles easily. And then I have another one for the helmet. But let's say if you're gonna do everything in one object, which would be the full helmet, then you'd want to have everything in one group. And then you would just be setting up your bake groups in the folders instead. But since I want to get a little bit more texture resolution, I'm gonna share it up in 3 parts of 4K textures. This is just for rendering something nice. And I'm actually gonna split this up a little bit different. I do want this to be part of the helmet. I think it will be a little bit easier to retopologize and bake. So now just this piece is able to change, which is fine with me. Let's see, does this bake down easily? And I'll probably do the goggles and the mask in the same group. Not sure. Let's keep them separated for now. So let's focus on the easiest group first. It's gonna be the goggles. So we'll take a look at how are we gonna bake this. And retop, we decided that this will be its own little piece. So first thing I'm gonna do is gonna make another save. It's gonna be like a final high. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna make a new save, but this time I'm gonna do for bake. So pilot helmet for bake. We open up that group, that folder. See see we have a pilot helmet for bake at the bottom. Let's start by cleaning this up. So I'm gonna go to cleanup. You can open up the settings, see what we want to do. I think that's all fine. Gonna disable save. So disable save, and then let's see. Let's hit clean all. So after pressing clean all, we should be left with a way smaller file size. So if I take a look, now we have 1.7 gigabytes. Now all that I have to do is hit the overwrite. It's gonna resave the file. Now you can see that the file's way smaller. And the way this works, it just goes ahead and deletes a bunch of stuff, which adds a lot to the file size. Make some new view groups. So the first one will be for the helmet. And the second one will just be for the goggles. And the third one will just be the mask. Do gotta make sure everything is unhidden in the folder. That all looks alright. So now we can easily switch between the different groups to bake. And I do think I want to add a little bit more detail to the goggles before we go any further. I want to get a little bit of that detail that we added here to this as well. So the way I'm just gonna set this up is go back here. Instead of pilot helmet for bake, we're gonna create a new one. Let's make a new layer. Now we're gonna repeat what we did in an earlier stage over here. So we're gonna start off with memory folds. We already kind of put some damn standard in some place for the folds, so we can also kind of follow those now. And by going over them with this brush, it's going to add more detail. If you want to use these brushes, I'll probably upload them to Gumroad for free, so you can use them as well. But they're not that difficult to set up. So after putting some in, we can go to the next one. Again, hold down Alt and release Alt. One Alt, one without Alt. Up to the next layer. Now for one of the most important one, the grain direction. Let's decide on how this should flow. I feel like this one would look the most natural up to down. So now let's start adding less intensity to the layers. So with 0.1, 0.4 maybe. I think that's looking good. Maybe we can bring this up to 0.2. And let's do one more where we refine the memory folds. Again, this is really not complicated, just follow the folds that we have. I think I should fix that as well a little bit. And high up the intensity a little bit. Gonna fix this on this layer. That became a little bit too thick. Should round that out a little bit here. Let's take a look at the difference. That's a little bit more clean. Now let's do one more layer where we come in with hand. And again, the function of this layer is just to punch in some of those folds and follow the alphas, but we can start breaking up the details a little bit. Especially those memory folds, you want to punch in a little bit more. In a little bit. I think this stitch way too long. Another thing that we can do, by the way, is we can go to masking. You could try to do some mask by cavity maybe. Then we get something like this. You can change the look by messing with these sliders. Then we get all these. Now just make a new morph target. Maybe smooth that out a little bit. Maybe clay builder. Pretty low intensity. So now we have something like this. Tone this way down. Now we can take the morph. Now we can start to morph that out. much down. Now we get some extra breakup, and that's just gonna be a little bit faster than doing it all by hand. Another thing that you can try on the newer versions is I'm gonna make a new morph target, fix in deformation and contrast. It's gonna like up the contrast of the details that you put in. Okay, just that here. That's right on. Now we can really easily delete details. As you can see, if we put minus, it's all gone. Or we can strengthen them. So now we get some good control for how strong the details are. It should be a little bit more. I think that looks good. Can try the same here. See if we can get a little bit of a different look. I think this is gonna mess a lot with stitching here. I just don't see this. Let's make that play first. Do it like that, where we just have a little bit more strength on the details. I think here we don't need it. I'm gonna come in one more time. A little bit of hand sculpting here and there. I think doing like this kind of diagonal cuts, like on folds, they really add to the look of leather. This looks a lot nicer to me. We can just kind of do this on all the folds if we want to. I have to smooth this shape out a little bit. Lines in there. Put some deeper cuts in for the breakup. Here. I think that adds quite a lot of nice detail. Wanna even that out a little bit by adding some more here though. So balance the details out. Put it here. Let's see, I'll probably, yeah, I'll detail this piece out as well. Let's say, let's check the poly count. I think that's enough, yep. And we can use symmetry on this. So let's just do some memory faults over the whole thing to get detail in it. I'm gonna do a new one, which is like some deeper memory faults. Let's lower the intensity here. Then I'll just add a grain. gonna do one more refine memory. It's a high intensity on this one. Tone this down a little bit. Then let's define a little bit by hand. You can see that you don't need to spend a lot of time on doing these detail passes. Like if you want, you can just spend a few minutes and that's all. I'm just going to show off the stitch stress brush. Should add that to a new layer though. This just punch a little bit more effect of the stitches if we want to. Gonna put in some cuts in the ladder here. I think that works well. And let's make another save. I'm gonna kind of check the letters again and whatever. I think this time we're really ready to call it done for now. And check out the mask, maybe add some more detail here. So I think this one can still use a little bit more detail. I just want to have some little bumps here and there as for the detail. I think it's okay. First thing I'm gonna try is make a new layer and go to masking. And mask by features. Mask by smoothness. Let's take a look at our brushes. Let's start off with standard. Change this to drag. Let's look for an alpha that we might be able to use. Maybe this one. Put it on color spray. Make a morph target. Low intensity. So I think that can be a good beginning. Let's lower that. Let's try this one as well. More target in mask. mask a little bit more. I can start tracking this out, get some bumps here and there. I'm gonna morph this out a little bit, just only on certain spots. And as a final layer, I want to come in by hand with standard brush. Just load this. Load this as well. So as a final, I'm just gonna go here and put some bumps in by hand. So let's go ahead and reset brushes first. Press play. I think it's better than those. Just doing this really fast, putting some little things in there. And when I do like detail pass like this, I don't worry too much about the reference. I just use it as a guide to see, hey, what kind of interesting stuff can we add to the surface to break it up. I think these things work quite well. And I think that looks detailed enough here. Over here I just want to add a little bit of detail. Again, we don't need to add detail to everything, so we also put a lot of detail in Painter. Get some noise. Let's go ahead and break this stuff up a little bit. So we need way more Polygon than that. And again, this is all just to kind of help out the generates while putting Painter. Don't worry too much about the look. Just want to get some details in. I think this has enough details. Maybe we can add a little bit of noise to this, just to make it a little bit more imperfect. Needs to be a pretty big noise. And light mesh. 0.01. Want this to be really subtle. Just too much noise. Maybe 0.050. You can see that just adds a little bit of noise, which is nice. We can call this one done. I'm gonna go back to this one. I think I want to detail this out a little bit more. I think the noise can work for this. I used to hate the noise brush, but I do think it adds some quite interesting details now. You can see it just makes it perfect. The surface less perfect, which is nice. Let's add some details here. Of course we delete all the noise. I was gonna go ahead and add a little bit of detailing here. I'm not too worried about these. Just kind of like spiraling details like that. Now let's do a really low intensity. And let's also smooth that out a little bit. We just got some really subtle stuff going on. I think this piece now is detailed enough. I think this is all detailed enough as well. So it fix itself in Painter. So let's make final save. And now let's make another save. Okay, I'm gonna show you the difference between the cleanup and not cleanup. So the cleanup was 400 KB more or less. Now if we do a save for bake, so that goes back all the way up to 1 gigabyte, 1.1. Now if we do cleanup, settings, keep all that, and clean up. And you can see it takes less than a minute. Now if we go to Save Manager and overwrite that save. Now we put that file size through more than like 50% of a reduce. So that's really good. Now we're going to start preparing our bake objects. So I'm going to start off with the easiest one, which will definitely be the goggles. Also messed up the naming a bit, I noticed. Not sure what happened. Just gonna save as and overwrite. We had to disable the save from the cleanup. Let's delete this one. So we want to be sure that everything here is one object to be baked. Let me think, maybe we Get rid of the glasses. Yeah, because this will be a separate object, the glasses. So all this needs to be together. And put glasses on top. And this one is also going to be separated. We also need to separate here a little bit, I think. This one's going to be its own object. Let's simplify this. We will merge this all together. Then we keep this one separated. Yeah, let's go ahead and merge that together. So this will consist of 4 elements, which is not too bad. I'm gonna recheck everything if this is how I want it to be. And I think that's all fine. So now we gotta start merging this down. Just can press always merge down. I'm gonna put this one on top. Just putting the most important one on top and going down in priority. And you will see why we do that in a bit. So now we can call that one done. Let's go to the mask. We can go to this group. This one might be a little bit more difficult to decide what we merge and what not. So yeah, definitely want to keep those separated. So let's start with those. This one should be its own element. And of course this one, we already have a low for that. Think, what do we do about this? Let me check if we have a low for this. But anyways, we definitely want to keep the skeins separated. There's some outer groups. I think we can split it up like this. This can be one object. And then this can be one object together with the ropes. Let's focus on top. So we didn't keep one for those things. Yeah. A little bit annoying, something we definitely should have had. But I'll admit that I'm a little bit unorganized. If I look to this file, it's quite messy. Let's go and see if we didn't have one another file. So it might be in gas mask. I don't think so. So we actually have it here. Let's try exporting this to Zbrush. See if we can rebuild this. I don't think we can, but it's worth a shot. So we can once. It's not worth it. See if we didn't keep like a before subdivision somewhere. Again, worked really messy on this asset. Should have been way cleaner with this. Do have a low folder here, so maybe it'd be here. Nope. So again, if you work messy to run through the high poly, it's gonna bite you in the ass later, which is doing now. But it's okay, we can retop it by hand again. Just hide everything so you can clearly see what we're working with. I'm really doubting what I want to do with these parts. This can definitely be merged together. I think we can merge this together as well. Let's see how that looks if we fill up the gap. I think that works, definitely, yeah. This is kind of like the difference between game and film. For game you don't need to merge this all up. For film I mean. For game you can, but again you don't have to. Maybe I'll split this one off to add some more depth. Yeah, let's split this one off so we get some actual nice depth here. It's gonna add quite a lot of poly count to keep it all nice and rounded. I think it's worth it, because we're already saving quite a lot by merging this together. Let's see, this one I'll probably bake down. Stitches, we want to get rid of that for the bake. I actually don't get rid of that, sorry. That's for the retop object. Let's split that. So I think this will all be one object. Maybe we'll split the tube thingy off from here. Now let's... Let's separate the tube, I think will be a little bit more clean. So we can merge this together. Subdivide this first. This will be another element. Go ahead, smooth that stroke out. that looks good to me. Don't like to merge buckles down to anything, so that should be its own element as well. Let's go ahead and make this its own element as well. But I do want to be able to justify that a little bit better. I'm gonna move the away a little bit more from the actual mask. So we create a gap, which is gonna create some depth in the asset. If I was doing this for an actual game project, I'll bake this down for sure though. But for portfolio piece, we can like add some nice depth to certain parts by doing this. Let's go ahead and split this. And merge down. This one definitely needs to be its own little asset together with stitches. Its own element, I mean, sorry. And smooth that out a little bit more. Let's go ahead and merge this down. See that we're already getting a lot of elements. Oh, and this one should be having that included. Let's take a look. So this all looks fine to bake down together. So let's merge that all down. Make save. So we need to add some subdivisions to this piece. I'm not sure what this is. We can fix that pretty hackily, just brushing away, doesn't matter, it won't be shown. Let's go ahead and merge this down together again. See, we have a lot of different objects for this one. So let's sort priority. Tubes definitely an important part of this asset. This is like third important. This I'd say is the fourth one. These things are pretty important. The least important probably. Pretty unimportant as well. Now I wanna, before we do the most difficult part, the helmet, I wanna explain a little bit why we're merging this stuff down in Zbrush and sorting them on priority. We go to subtle rename. We put this on folder. So it's gonna match the subtool name to the folder name. Let's also add a folder filter so it only renames in the current folder. Let's add a high to it. Let's get all those. Let's do the same for these. So now you can see that we get a pretty nice organized naming convention going on. I'm gonna take the goggle example as it's easier. So now if we go to marmoset, we'd have like different baking groups. Let's see. So goggles high 1. So let's disable everything else. This will be the first baking group inside the marmoset. So then we have the baking group, which will be goggles 0, 1. And in that baking group we have two objects. Let's say goggles 0, 1 high, and then we have the goggles 0, 1 low. That's the one that we're gonna be making in Maya in a little bit. And by just sorting the most important one on top, it's easy to remember how the order should be when we do the Maya one. So in the end we'll end up with 4 baking groups for the goggle folder, as it has 4 elements. Each one of these is an element. And then for the mask we do the same, and we end up with a little bit more baking folders with 11. But having 11 is really excessive and it's a pain to set up. So one thing that we can do is we can also go here and we gotta subdivide the stitches actually. Let's merge that down. So now it's subdivisions. So one thing that we can say is, as you can see, these are not touching and they're not overlapping at all. Could push them in a little bit here though. We can do that later in the low. So what we can say is, because these are not overlapping, we can put those in the same baking folder. But let's say this one and this one cannot be in the same baking folder as they're overlapping. And that way you'll get some bake issues. So the main piece, everything overlaps with that, so we cannot do anything with that. But if you see, if we unhide those are all pieces that are not touching each other. So we could take this and say merge down and merge down. So now we have, we'll still end up with the same elements in the low, but we'll just end up with less baking folders to set up, which will be faster. So having 2 baking folders to work with is a lot more manageable than 11. So now we can do the same here. We can see what's gonna overlap with each other and what not. Always the most important one on top is gonna overlap because it's where you have everything, right? So if we take a look here, we could probably say the buckles. We can merge those down together. Those are not overlapping. Let's add these thingies to them. I think this one doesn't have real subdivisions, only dynamic, so let's add them. Same for this one. You want to try to get as many similar things on one folder, so it's a little bit more manageable for yourself. Like that. Then we can say let's add one of those to here as well. So nothing's overlapping. This is overlapping, but that's okay, So when I do the retop, I'm gonna merge them together, so it will be one object, so it's not an overlapping object. This can all sound a little bit confusing, but will be more clear when we bake down and retop. I don't want to merge this piece together here. As you can see, it's really close, so it's better to put that on a different group. So let's say we have another group here. Let's hide this one. And here we can add the tube. I think will be a good one. And this one. And this one. This one's too overlapping. That's not overlapping, but too close. I think it will be better on this one. So here we gotta kinda make a design choice for the low poly. We can say we put in the same bake group, but then we need to merge this topology together. Let me think if that's like a handy thing to do. And I think this is better unmerged. The distance is pretty high between those two, so we can merge down. So you can see, instead of having 11 groups, now we just have 3 groups that we work with. Sort them from priority. Let's quickly rename. This is going to be a lot more manageable. We cannot merge these down any further, because if we merge any of these two, we're going to have overlapping stuff, which is bad. Now it just exists of 3 bacon folders, because we can merge all those elements together. And I want to make one thing very clear. Just because we have two objects in here now, it doesn't mean that we're gonna have different UV textures for these. Like this is not gonna have 3 textures because we have 3 objects. These folders are the ones that we're gonna give different UV sets or different textures. So one texture for the mask, one for the goggles, and then another one for the helmet. But to get a proper clean bake, we need to make sure that nothing is overlapping in the bake that we're gonna do. And that's why we're separating everything out like this. So now we just got one more to worry about. You can see this one's gonna be tougher. This one has a lot of stuff going on. So I think we can start off with a pretty obvious one. That's gonna be this rope. I like to just move everything down. It's easier to manage that way. So this is all gonna be merged together. This one's another pretty obvious one. Should also move this a little bit better. Don't want that intersecting at all. Let's go ahead and do all the buckle type objects. I think we have a low for this in here as well. So we do, that's great. So let's merge that down. Again, hide everything so you can get a clear view. This one's kind of tricky to decide. I think I'm gonna separate it, but if I was doing this for a game object, I might just bake this all down. Why is that not hiding? I think this one's a double object as well. So now we can also finally kind of eliminate us double objects that we've been dealing with. Let's see, what's this? Gonna keep those separated for now and decide later what we do with it. Another buckle. Again, don't like merging down buckles, it looks quite ugly. This one should definitely be its own little thingy. It should be merged with this though. That's some subdivisions. I'm not sure about these ones. They really don't add that much depth from most angles. I'll keep them separate as well. But if this was for a game asset, like to put an actual game, I'd probably merge this down as well. To get a pretty render, I'll keep them separated for now and decide later on what to do with them. I'll probably keep that its own object. Buckles in here. It's kind of a tricky thing. I think we need to edit this mesh a little bit better. This hole's quite a pain to retopologize. Just gonna go ahead and fill that all up. Because if the buckle's also in there, you're not really gonna see through it. Make an append sphere. Then the texture, we're gonna put like a black color for this to fake the depth. I can kind of show you right now. If we put this black, you can see now that we get like a hole and shadow. At least that's what it's gonna look like once we bake this black in the albedo. This way we can just do the retop really easy by going over it like this. And we don't need to worry about like putting a hole there in the retop. below, because that's going to be a huge pain to bake and to retop. So if you can, try to avoid like any kind of holes, stuff like this. You want to be sure that it's not clipping or anything, because we don't want this to be actually shown. Give me a little bit of a hard time. So I'm just going to make an extraction of where we need it. And again, I'm extracting with a plugin. You can get it in the ArtStation store for me. So now we can delete this. Add some thickness. Add that black. I will have to re-edit. Can move this closer together to fill that hole. Go ahead and apply. So now you can see that hole's filled and we don't need to worry about in the retop, which is amazing. Because these are the things that makes the retopology actually hard, not knowing how to deal with stuff like this. But if you can plan this out well in this stage where you prepare your mesh for the bake, you shouldn't be having a hard time doing the retop. So as you can see, now we'll have like a faked hole. If we put this, it's not going to be too noticeable. We want to try to push this in a little bit more. We can thicken this up a little bit. Just like that. Now we're not really gonna be able to spot that in the final asset. I'll texture it up. Right, like this. Let's see, what else do we have? Just make sure everything's on the highest subdivision here before we start merging stuff together. We have holes here which are gonna be a pain to retop, but I want to add a little bit of depth. I will keep this on the same object. So over here, where we stop the hole, we can still merge that down with the actual topology like this. And over here we gotta do something more difficult, where we start adding that to just the rim. Then underneath it we have to actually retop, which is gonna be pretty tricky, but we'll manage. I think it's nice to show you how that kind of works as well. I think like separating the high in two different stages, where we first make the high and then we actually have a high stage where we prepare the high to be baked, is really valuable, as we can really focus on small parts of the high, each baking group, each texture set. Make sure all parts are going to be easy to retop. So as you can see here in the high, I gotta kind of adjust this so it will be easy to bake. Same for here, as you can see it's too far from the piece. And just by really preparing your height for the next stage, it's gonna make everything so easy in the low. Because we already have everything planned out. So all the problems that you usually come across during the low polish stage, we already kind of problem solved that in the high. Run into a little bit of an issue here. This will be really painful to retop, but if we spot it soon enough, we can just go into the high and fill up that gap. Now it's not going to be difficult, it's going to be really easy, which is exactly what we want. We want the retop to be as easy as we can make it for ourselves. Fixing those little intersections that I created. Now to retop this super overlapping complicated piece, since we moved everything really close together, we can just have a loop going here, then maybe like a triangle here, and we can pretty simply just do something like this. Maybe like that. If this go up here, you see, will be a little challenging this part, but not too much. The only thing that's important at this point is that we really eliminate any gaps. Stuff like that's just gonna make it such an unnecessary pain if you keep that in. I think this all looks okay. Let me take this piece and mirror it. I'm gonna do another override. And I think this should be good to all merge together. This part right here is gonna be a pain to retop though. I need to move this a little bit close together. So I'm just trying to avoid gaps. So really take a note, so I'm trying to fill in all those gaps that we're working with. Again, you don't need to be as worried for gaps in film, but for game this is gonna be pretty important. As we do need to keep performance in mind, and this way we can work with a lot less polys. And let's say making LODs will be a lot easier and map mapping will be better. It has a lot of advantages merging pieces together. Especially if it's gonna deform. Like if there's like a t-shirt with a lot of deformation, it's especially useful. For something like this it's a little bit less important, as we don't have to worry about deformation, as it hasn't have any. I'm gonna leave this gap in here because I think that's depth to the model, which is nice. If you have like everything merged together, it's gonna create a little bit of a helmet effect. So you do want to be careful with what you merge together. I think that works. Dip in shading. Watch the gaps here. So I don't want to have any gaps here, so we can all keep that merged. A little bit of an issue with stitches disappearing here. You can see it's pretty time consuming setting this all up to work right. But it's really worth it. This is what's gonna give you a nice good bake and make the process of creating that low a lot faster and less frustrating. So really take your time on this stage. And I think this is a stage that a lot of people tend to skip, which just makes the process really unenjoyable of creating a low. I'm really looking for those holes. You can have a little bit of a hole somewhere, but it should be very minimal. Keeping an eye out on intersectings as well. You can have a little bit of breathing space. Make sure those stitches go into the mask, into the mesh. Watch that intersection, that's huge. Having like big bad intersections like that is like a dead giveaway that it's a 3D object, because it's physically impossible. And I think we're about done. I think that should work. So I'm just gonna start merging this all together. give it one final look. Yeah, this should work. Gonna overwrite. If you merge a lot of stuff together, you can crash if you get really high poly count, so it's better to overwrite sometimes to not lose any process that we made. Make sure that's still been shown there. Like, the better you pay attention to the low while making the high, the less you have to make change like this in the final high. And let's stop merging stuff together. I think that's all. Seems to be a little bit close. And stitches, they shouldn't go into that. Bit of an intersection problem. So you can see it's all making very minor adjustments just to make the height perfect with the intersections and whatever. So I think that's enough work. Go ahead and try to merge this all down. And keep an eye on my active points. So I don't really want to pass the 20 million mark on this stuff, so everything just becomes a pain at that point. We're gonna see if we can avoid that. I think it's okay, we can merge this down, it's not too high. Like a little bit of 20 mil won't hurt. But if you get up to like 40 millions, it's just unworkable at that point for my computer. It also depends on your computer, right? If you have a really good one, you can go higher. If you have a pretty bad one, you should go a little bit lower. So I'm a little bit iffy about this poly count. Maybe we need to split it down for the actual bake, but let's try. Let's see, what can we merge together here? So I'll probably go ahead and do this one with the buckles. See what else we merge. This can be with these little guys. I'm not quite sure what to do with this. just gonna keep it for the low poly. Again, it's gonna be a little bit higher, but for pretty render it's okay. Let's match up with this one. That's not too bad, we have 4 baking groups. Again, it doesn't matter how many baking groups you have. It's just to make it easier on yourself to do the setup. I think those are the highest priority ones, like that. A little bit of this section here. Let's go ahead and see those next. Alright. Let's just bring them all. So just put it to folder. Let's add a high prefix. Let's do an override. I'm gonna do one final cleanup just to make sure everything's nice and clean. Let's disable save and clean all. So we have save still enabled. Let me just cancel and clean all. And then let's do one final override. Now we have pilot helmet for bake. It's kinda big because we got rid of a lot of subdivisions, so that's gonna make it higher, the file size. It's not too bad, 1 GB. So now that we have the for bake, we need to go ahead to the next step. There will be a for retop version. Or the ID version. Let's do the ID version first. So to do the ID map, you just want to press save versions ID. The name will mess up a little bit because we went all the way from bake. Now the name is gonna really mess up because I'm gonna override it once. We can just go here and copy this and change bake to ID. And to explain really quickly what an ID map is, it's a map that we use in Substance Painter or any other texture software. And then we can just select the color to make a mask of. So let's say for the leather you have the brown color, and if you select the brown color you will have a mask for your leather material. And that's a really easy way to make selections in Painter. So once this is all like one object, you cannot really select it. Let's say the stitches, you cannot really select them unless we have an ID color for them. Should also get subdivision for those. We'll fix that later. So the first thing that you always want to start off with is just making outer groups. Actually, we don't necessarily need to do outer groups first. Let's first go to the goggles as well. This will be a little bit easier to show. So we start off with a white layer for everything. Not sure why that's black. Fill. That's fill. Now we need to start putting colors for what we want to select in Painter. So I'm going to start off with some outer groups. We can select this. Let's say all the leather of this material is going to be a green color. We do want to make a difference between those two leathers. I think that will be useful. So we can select them apart from each other if we want to. So maybe this leather, the selection color will be red. Then let's do the same for this one. Then this piece here, let's go ahead and make that yellow. Stitches. Still missing some as well. The ID version, most of the times it can also be the for bake version. sometimes in rare cases you have to kind of mess with it, but usually you should be fine with keeping this the same. I feel like this is a little strange. Let's see, do we want to push that in? Yes, we want to. That's okay. Then we should be pushing this out though. Not sure what to do with this, to be honest. I think it's better if we all push this in. We just have that green light then. So yeah, I think that looks a little bit more natural. We don't really need that for the version, I think. Just gonna save this as the for bake. Let's give these, try to give them all different colors that are pretty different from each other. That's gonna make it the most easy to select stuff. Most of the times you do have to get kind of